Hello, and welcome to our lesson on advanced topics and emerging trends. This segment will cover international organizational structures, Part 1. In international markets, an array of organizational structures has evolved over the past decades, from classical functional and matrix formats to hybrid mixes and weak to strong matrix organizations. The structure of an organization determines the flexibility available on contract structures, project manager power, stakeholders, sponsors, and communications. It is critical that international project managers understand the enterprise within which they function, that of the other project participants, and that of the value chain. Understanding the structures and norms of the organizations participating in the project is critical. This will tell the international project manager how communications function, and even more important, how power is distributed and used. And the next step is to understand how the branch offices interpret the organizational policies and norms. One certainty in all projects is that they will change. Change comes from internal and external sources, from governmental regulations, from technology, and from culture. International projects are more susceptible to change because of the complexity of the markets and the diversity in the politics, laws, customs, and norms, culture, and so on. The job of the project manager is to recognize the societal cultural differences and leverage the strength inherent in the team's diversity for the benefit of the organization. Change is almost always disruptive and, at times, traumatic. An international project manager must lead change, seek it, cherish it, manage it, celebrate it, and spread these attitudes within the project team. Globalization has changed how international projects are structured and implemented. As value chains become more pervasive and intricate, contract structures must consider the increased need for cross-cultural leadership, communications, and knowledge management. Types of contract structures are rigid contract structures, fixed price affairs. They are rigid because the relationships between the parties are often fixed in advance, along with the communication channels. Fixed price contracts generally are used by public entities in a competitive bidding environment. Ideally, contracts of this type are based on a design that is complete and accurate, and on a contract that fully and accurately describes the customer's goals, objectives, and scope. Flexible contract structures include cost plus, time and materials, and design build. In these structures, communications begin early and continue through project closeout. On design build contracts, the customer and seller, contracting entity or consultant, engage in dialogue from the product's conceptual phase into the operational phase. Flexible structures are often employed when the scope of the work is not sufficiently definable in advance of its execution. Collaborative structures, including joint ventures, partnerships, consortiums, and alliances. In these structures, multiple parties perform the scope of the work and often can be both supplier and customer. The hallmark of collaborative structures is that they embody the need for more enduring and intimate relationships, with knowledge shared more openly. These structures are used when the scope of the work is not defined clearly in advance of the execution. The financing for international projects is accomplished in an array of ways. In international business and project management, there are a variety of opportunities that range from venture capital to bonds. Some of the categories of financing that are available are capital provided from cash on hand, bonds, international financial organizations, conventional banks, investment banks, sovereign wealth funds. Capital provided by the customer from cash on hand is a source of funding. The customer may be a private organization with a strong balance sheet, a wealthy individual, a charitable trust, or an NGO. This is the easiest source of funding, as it involves funds that exist, are earmarked for the project, and reside in a fungible state. Bonds can be issued by a government organization or a private sector organization. Bonds are obligations denominated in a currency that have a risk rating and are backed by a promise to repay with a designated amount of interest in a time frame. International financial organizations are another source of funding. These come in a variety of types and finance a variety of projects globally. Here are a few. The International Finance Corporation, part of the World Bank Group, fosters sustainable economic growth in developing countries by financing private sector investment. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, lends to countries with balance of payments, difficulties, to provide temporary financing and to support policies aimed at correcting the underlying problems. The World Bank is a vital source of financial and technical assistance to developing countries around the world. The Asian Development Bank, ADB, is an international development finance institution whose mission is to help its developing member countries reduce poverty and improve the quality of life of their people. The Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, supports the process of economic and social development in Latin America and the Caribbean. The African Development Bank, AFDB, helps reduce poverty, improve living conditions for Africans, and mobilize resources for the continent's economic and social development. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EBRD, supports projects in 30 countries from Central Europe to Central Asia. This is the end of this segment of our lesson. In the next segment, we shall discuss international organizational structures, Part 2. This course is presented to you by South Europe College. Thank you for listening, and see you on our next segment.